I genuinely believe it's got big ramifications. Seriously, especially if you're a Tesla investor. A half marathon took place in Beijing yesterday, right? You know I love running, okay? But it wasn't just any old race. It was humanoid robots. They outran the humans. They're running, obviously, in a separate lane. But it actually broke the human world record. But it broke it by like 7 minutes, having been eons behind last year. Now, our China reporter, Elaine Yu, has the story. And Elaine, why I'm so staggered by this, because over in the States, as you know, there's a certain small company called Tesla, whose ridiculously 190 times forward valuation is based, amongst other things, on its robot. Well, I'm sorry, some of these Chinese robots look like they're eons ahead of Tesla, which would be very interesting for those valuations. But anyway, tell me about this robot.
Oh, absolutely. And Tesla should be worried. And also perhaps its domestic rival Unitree, right? But this is the second humanoid half marathon event in Beijing after last year. And robots beat humans in quite a stunning show of speed and agility, especially after last year's chaos and mishaps with many falls back then. And even if this year actually featured even tougher terrains. Now, the robot from the Shenzhen-based smart device company Honor, which is a Huawei spinoff, claimed victory in 50 minutes and 26 seconds. That's compared to last year's 2 hours and 40 minutes by the robot champion back then. And this year, it beat the human winner of the event by 17 minutes. And as you said, it actually surpassed the world record for a half marathon set in March by a Ugandan runner by nearly 7 minutes. And in fact, robots from Honor, this company, swept the podium, taking second and third place as well, all using this model called Lightning. And it featured autonomous perception and navigation and also high-speed movement. Now, this robot champion, according to the company, was in development for a year, and it featured 35 to 37-inch long legs that mimicked human elite runners, and it is also equipped with a self-developed liquid cooling system by the company that is set to penetrate deep into the motors like the capillaries in our bodies to dissipate heat. And of course, Honor's liquid cooling tech is also used in its smartphones. And in terms of its control, it also used multi-sensor fusion and motion control algorithms to adapt to very complex road conditions and also to control the robot's center of gravity in real time. Now, last year, there were 20 teams. This year, participation ballooned to more than 100 teams. So that just really shows the level of interest and investments in this arena. Arjun?
Yeah, Elaine, there's so many fascinating tenets of this story. I think, robotics, it's easy to look at some of the things these robots do and perhaps brush it off as quite trivial. But to be able to move like that requires incredible dexterity, which requires incredible hardware innovation. It also requires very good software innovation for these robots to be able to perceive their surroundings, process that, and move accordingly. And it's so interesting, companies like Honor, you've got Xiaomi, EV companies, consumer electronics companies looking to leverage their supply chains to build these kind of robots. But given the advancements we've seen with these runners, Elaine, what does this mean for potential commercial applications or even industrial applications from what we're seeing in terms of the advancements these Chinese robotics companies are making?
So this is what these events are used for. Now, it's very interesting, as you mentioned, that we're seeing smartphone makers like Honor entering the arena, also, as you say, Xiaomi. So we see really consumer electronics players crossing over into the robotics space now. But experts have also said that the performance at the half marathon doesn't necessarily immediately translate into the dexterity, the efficiency that human workers display that are needed in factories beyond just repetitive and sort of smaller tasks. And in terms of household tasks, that's even a far longer term push. But for those who are worried about what this means for us humans as well, I just want to quickly mention that during a training session, a robot also tripped and was seen sort of convulsing pretty helplessly on the ground during a training session earlier and had to be brought out onto a stretcher. So there are, of course, hiccups and obstacles, but yeah, spectators at the event as well as engineers, they are impressed by the performance in this year's event.
We can see it there. I can't see Optimus doing any of that stuff anytime soon. On AI, when was the last time that it was a Elon Musk company that came up with the big headline? It's Anthropic all the time. It's OpenAI. It's one of the others as well. And on self-drive, well, it seems to me they're in a catfight. So show me, Aj, why there is a case for US tech exceptionalism when we've got stories such as this.
Yeah, look, so much right now of investor appetite around Tesla is focused on this robotic story. And Elon Musk has done a great job, as he always does, of telling the market, hey, it's not about the cars anymore, it's about the AI, it's about our robotics, it's about robotaxis. But the fact of the matter is, in all of those areas, it's facing such intense competition. Part of the robotic story, I think, is when you look at China, it's got a huge homegrown market. And I think robotics, because it's linked to AI, is going to be so much tied into the geopolitics of everything as well. So it's unlikely you're going to see mass market Chinese robotics into the US market. So perhaps there's a bit of appetite for saying, well, look, Tesla, it is one of the big players in robotics. Maybe in the US market, it might have some sort of chance there. But clearly, there is intense competition in all of these areas, as you mentioned.
And Alain's going to come in. Who's going to buy an Optimus robot that can barely walk across the stage when you can see that the Chinese have got something which is running marathons in 50 minutes? You're going to say, well, I'll just wait for the next incarnation, even if it's America. I don't know. Elaine, come in.
No, and cost is one thing, too, in terms of commercialization, right? It's about cost and how scalable the tech is. But when we talk about robotics, especially with the U.S.-China race as well, we have to talk about supply chains. And we're seeing China really leveraging its sort of full stack supply chains when it comes to robotics. And we see Lens Technology, which is, of course, a key Apple supplier. They said they developed more than 130 key metal structural components for the Honor robot, including key motion units like its head, its arms, its hips, its legs, and also a company called Lingyi iTech also provided the structural components and the service treatment tech for Honor robot. They're not just supplying for Chinese companies, U.S. robotics companies. They also have to source components from China because of its supply chain there. So this is where China is really doubling down and using its manufacturing prowess. And Morgan Stanley also doubled its humanoid robot sales volume this year in its outlook on humanoid commercialization for the year to 28K. And also the bank set component suppliers will be the first to profit from the industry's nascent growth.